Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and so today's video is controversial, and of course it is, because why wouldn't it be? As you can see by the thumbnail, it is DEI is not the problem. I'm going to say that again and reiterate it because I'm emphasizing a particular word for a good reason. DEI isn't the problem. It is a problem, and I'll get into that as well. However, it is not the problem. The problem is creative redundancy. That's the problem with wargaming, with movies, with comics, with video games. All media is suffering from this issue. It's becoming creatively redundant. They do not know what to do with what they've got. It's why we're seeing sequel after sequel after sequel, remakes, constant plugging of books and comics and models which have, are just remakes of old models. We're not seeing anything really that new coming out. Even this new Imperial Agents book, which I think it was last year, I called it out last year that this was happening, isn't actually that new, because if you go back to 5th edition, Codex Witch Hunters and Codex Demon Hunters, you will see it has exactly the same rules, that you could take, Space Marines and all these things into an Imperial army. So it's not that new. It's interesting, and it's basically that book's old enough for that most people who are alive today never really played it, and anyone who's starting now never heard of it, even though Demon Hunters and Witch Hunters are both considered some of the best codices ever made. Anyway, but we are seeing creative redundancy, and it started, I think, around about 2013, 2015. However, there is a good reason for why it started then without having to include DEI. Because around about the 2000s, to that point, everything was at its pinnacle. Everything was, cinema was awesome, TV was awesome, comics were great. Warhammer 40k at the 2000s was absolutely based. It was GOAT at that time. Same with video games. Everything was at a level which was absolutely fantastic. And because people were being creative, video games were really creative from the off, but with limitations of the N64, the SNES, the NES, kind of sort of held people back, which it did. However, when that generation, the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Dreamcast, and original Xbox came out, suddenly they had all this new power that they could really, really branch out with creativity. Everything changed. Mario changed. Every genre changed. First-person shooters changed. Everything got far more creative after that point. And that's when everything started getting good. Even Warhammer 40k started to get far more creative at that point with their storyline, because that's when the Horus Heresy first started. And they were starting releasing a lot of good books, such as I think the Gaunt's Ghost book started then. Actually, a lot of the books started around that point too, and it was really adding and expanding on to the already known universe of 40k. Then this ran on for about 15 years, and actually the novels ran a little bit longer, but the storyline within the game ran on for about 16 years. I'm trying to remember when 7th ended and we had the Primaris. See, that's when we see again, all these things matter. I'll count it here. Wargaming, I'm going to say them again. Wargaming, video gaming, movies, TV, comics, all of this started to go downhill at this point because they didn't know what to do with what they had. Everything sort of started to dry up. We saw during the early 2000s to around 2013, 2015, we saw two comics being zombie-based. We had Blackest Night and we had Marvel Zombies. Two takes on Marvel's superhero zombies. Both are really good for very different reasons. Marvel Zombies was more comedic. It was quite a funny comic. However, Blackest Night was a far darker comic. It was more horror-based. And they were both good in their own ways. The events happening at the time were far greater and far bigger. We had the Hush event. We had the War Games event, which, by the way, is one of the most underrated Batman storylines ever. And we had Civil War as well, which is absolutely fantastic for Marvel. We had the end of the Top Cow universe and the Rebirth, which was a fantastic storyline. So a lot of things was being far more creative. and it really started to work for everyone. We had the Assassin's Creed, which was branching out from Prince of Persia. We had Call of Duty coming out with, lots of different storylines. If you remember when Modern Warfare came out, the first one, the next one was World at War, which was back to the old World War II setting. And then we had Modern Warfare 2, which was completely different from Modern Warfare 1. And then we had Black Ops, which just completely branched out from almost the first-person shooter completely by going Vietnam. So, here's the thing. And when they had this creative ability just at its height, it was going to go downhill. But also, when it kind of hit this point, a lot of people with lots of money became far more interested in these things. So when it started going downhill, because, you hit a point, it's going to be, there's going to be peaks and troughs, and this was the trough where, people were going to go, right, we need to start thinking about how to get back. It kind of did something different, because rather than trying to be creative again, it became more trying to reach out to a different demographics. However, they kind of missed the point. Because the thing is, what made these things good was the creative side of them. It was how they were kind of different in themselves while being part of the same genres. And that's when things started to go wrong. The reason they started bringing in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, etc., wasn't because they wanted to be inclusive. No, I'm kind of apathetic towards the whole thing. It doesn't bother me either way. Okay? As long as it's good, I'm happy. If it's bad, that's when I take issue. What the main character, if he's gay, if he's black, lesbian in a wheelchair, I do not care. Right? But that's not about that, but to continue my point is what I'm going to say. These people who are in charge would say, oh, we're going to add women because women will buy women and gay people will buy gay. You see what I mean? It wasn't adding it for any actual interest into including a character for their gender, sexuality, race, whatever. It wasn't for that reason. It was just so these people, again, any of these minorities would buy it just because representation. Look, good representation's good representation. It's good, right? That's the stuff I would always say. That's the stuff you should be supporting. If you're going for representation, and that's the reason you're buying it for, then make sure what you're buying is good and support that rather than just something that's popular and mediocre. Buy good, not mediocre. And I've said this before, because that way you'll get more inclusion and more people will share it and it'll be far more interesting. However, they just got into their heads that to get more people to get more gay people to buy, let's say, a comic, they'll add more gay people. What they wouldn't do and what they didn't do is start highlighting actual gay characters which are well loved. And a good example of this is from DC Comics. One of my favourite characters, Midnighter, and his husband, Apollo, weren't really highlighted. They didn't start getting their own comic, even though these characters are fantastic, and I freaking love him. Midnight is one of my favourite characters of all time. He's like Batman, and who literally gives zero cares. Try not to swear in my videos. I really am. And, he does kill. He's Batman who kills. And he's fantastic. He's better than the Punisher. And if I was really pushing for inclusion and representation, I'd say I want Midnighter. And actually, I do want a Midnighter film, to be honest with you. And the same with the Green Lantern. We would say, rather than making a John Stewart, the big Green Lantern, the main Green Lantern, over Hal Jordan at this time. This was during after Secret Origins, and you had his Rebirth storyline. They just went ahead and made another black Green Lantern for the DCEU, the DCU, the DCNU. Jesus, there's so many of those, isn't there? And why not? Why not make John Stewart, a beloved black character, the main character of the Green Lantern now, rather than just making him as kind of part of a team in the Green Lantern Corps? Anyway, this is something we'll see time and time again. It will happen again. All of this DEI stuff's going to die down. It's going to sort of disappear when quality starts going up again. when people stop caring about anything, then the quality is going to dip and drop, and then they'll start doing it again, and we're going to see this time after time. The only way we can always avoid this is to only buy stuff that's good. Only buy the quality stuff. Popular doesn't mean good. Some of my favourite games weren't popular, but they get 9s and 10s. They get really high ratings by critics, but they're not popular because, people didn't buy them. And that's the thing. If we buy good, constantly go for quality, inclusion will happen. It will happen. It will happen naturally. And no one will care. Not a single person. Okay, you might get the odd bigot who's an idiot who's like, oh god, there's a gay character in it. I do not care. If it's good, and it should stay that way. If it's bad, it should go away. Let things die. If you have no longer a creative interest or cannot create anything new for your universe, let the universe die. Just let it finish, let it go off on its own, and then create something new. Letting something die isn't always a bad thing, because something better usually takes its place. I say usually, but you know what I mean. Not just changing edition, by the way. Not just adding a new edition because new edition. Actually bring out something new. See? And that's what we should be doing. And that's what we should be striving for. Always the good quality stuff, not the bad stuff. So yeah, DEI is not the problem. It is a problem. It is a symptom of a bigger problem. Focus on the bigger problem. Focus on that, and everyone's going to be happy. And yes, there is going to be a law video coming up today. It's going to be in a couple of hours. I've just finished writing it. It's kind of a better, the usual one, which comes out on a Monday. But I'm not focusing on a single game or faction. I'm focusing on something on this as a whole here. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a good day. If you wish to save money on your wargaming, don't forget to click Whaling Games down below, as always, because if you want to save money on your wargaming, and then free delivery after £20. There is also Forbidden Planet for comics, DVDs, mangas, all that cool geeky merchandise which everyone loves. And there is my merchandise, stickers, cups, t-shirts, my comics as well. They're down below. If you want to see Little Red go ham on some Lovecraftian werewolves, cyborg werewolves, and there is a horror anthology. Do not forget Skyforge. He's a good friend of mine. Let's get him up in that Google algorithm. And finally, Patreon because of business. Bye bye.